So, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here to talk about pitches, and I talk about inspirational pitches, because my title, as you see here, is Chief Inspiration Officer. Some of you have CTOs, some of you have a Chief Information Officer. I prefer inspiration, because that's what presentation should rhyme with. But most presentations and most pitches, unfortunately, do not end up hooking people, because they end up, instead of rhyming with fascination and inspiration, they end up rhyming with that horrible, painful form of death, which of course is death by PowerPoint. But without any visual support, how much do you think people will remember 3 days later? Any idea how many, what percentage are they going to remember? 5%? 1%? The actual answer is 10%. 10% after 3 days really is not very much. That means 90% of what you say on Monday, if you have no slides at all, no visual support, is basically going to go into the recycling bin of their neurons. It means they're going to forget what you needed them to remember. And that is no use at all. However, with great slides, how much do you think you can get them to remember after the same 3 days? Any idea? 50%? Do I hear more than 50? I hear 70%. Do I hear more than 70? Gone at 70. The actual answer is 65%. That's amazing. That's 6.5 times more recollection. Here's brain rules. This is Dr. John Medina. Rule number 10 says vision trumps all other senses. That means it's more important than all the other senses. Even those of us who are least visual are more visual than anything else. So give them something important, something original, something different to look at, and they will remember. Give them a slideument and they won't. Here's another new word. This is a slideument. It's what happens when you try with one PowerPoint file to do a slide and also a document. Something you can give to them, something you can distribute, something they can read. Now, I'm sorry, a slide is not for reading. A slide is a visual support to what you're saying to the audience. The more you put on the screen, the less they can listen to you. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very sorry, we can't read and listen at the same time. It just doesn't happen. We can't do it. So, don't ask your audience to choose. Don't give them too much to read, or they will stop listening. And they'll be wondering, what the hell is he doing there? So, don't do that. The result of a slideument is this. So the slides, let's take a look at how we make great slides. First, here's a typical kind of slide. This is the kind of thing you really don't want to be doing. If you put this slide on the wall or something that looks like that, what happens is, first you have the choice. Either you say exactly what is on that, which means you're reading your slide, which means you probably turned your back to the audience, which isn't a very good thing to be doing. And that means that you're reading it, but they can read faster than you can. And so they've got to the bottom while you're only halfway up, and they're thinking, when's he going to catch up, this guy? So that's not a good thing to do. But equally, you could do what I'm doing now, which is I'm saying different words to what's on the slide, and assuming the audience can read and listen at the same time. And that doesn't work either. And then when I advance the slide, people are going to get very annoyed because they're like, oh, I hadn't finished reading. So don't do that. First thing we need to do with our slides is to stop the bullets. We need to ban the bullet. The right number of bullet points on a slide is 0. It's not 5, it's not 6, it's not 3, it is 0, because bullets are boring. Nobody remembers them, but everybody hates them. So no bullets. If you need a list of a few items, that's okay, but no bullets. But try to keep the number of words down. Remember, we talk about slides being the same as handouts, as the documents that you distribute. Well, they are not. A slide is not a good document. A document is not a good slide. They're two very separate things. So don't try to kill two birds with one stone. Slides are not handouts. So the document needs to be standalone. That could be useful. It needs to be autoporteur, as the French would say, standalone. Your slides, they're just a support to what you're saying. And they support better when they don't have too much stuff on them, but when they score. SCORE is the 5-letter acronym for a great slide. We're going to have a look now at the 5 characteristics of a great slide. The first, starts with S of course, is again for simplicity. Because simplicity in your slides is just as important. This is someone you may have heard of. It's Leonardo da Vinci, who said, and I love this, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. It's very easy to do complicated stuff. It's very hard to make the complicated simple, but you need to do that. Now, I'm going to give you a little exercise to do here. Okay, I'm going to show you a slide, and I'm going to ask you whether it passes the 5-second rule. The 5-second rule says if the audience can understand the slide in 5 seconds, then they don't lose the connection with what you're saying. If they're worried, or if they're trying to work out what it is that that slide says after 30 seconds, they're not listening to you anymore. So you've got 5 seconds to make them understand it. I'm going to show you a slide, and I'm going to give you 5 seconds to see if you understand it. And to make it easy for you, I'm not even going to talk in that time. Are we ready? Let's go. 5 seconds. Okay, anybody? Anyone get that? What's the key message? Boo. Exactly. Far too much detail. Not at all clear, too many small things, and the key message was very hidden. These are real slides, by the way. Let's try another one. Are we ready? 5 seconds. Anyone? No. That came from a consulting firm. Anyone here work for a consulting firm? Yes, you probably understood. Consulting firms are some of the worst torturers of death by PowerPoint in the world. So you don't want to be doing that. Okay, let me try another one. 5 seconds. Are we ready? Okay, I give you 3 seconds. Did you get that? What did it say? Change the world. And does that plant a question in your brain? Generally, that plants the question, really? And how? And then you listen to find out the answer. Often the best slides don't actually give you the answers, but they make you listen more by asking a simple question. So a good slide, imagine it asks a simple question or it gives a simple answer. Some of the best slides make people listen more by provoking a question, by making them think, really? And then they listen to find out what you have to say about it. So your slides are not your message. They're there to make people listen to your message. You may have heard of an excellent American guy called Seth Godin. Have you heard of Seth Godin? Anyone? Yep, you know Seth Godin. Okay, the man who wrote The Purple Cow and All Marketers Are Liars and things like that. He wrote some great books, a fantastic blog. He wrote one of the first books about bad PowerPoint. It was called Really Bad PowerPoint. And in that, he came up with the idea that no slide should have more than 6 words. No more than 6 words per slide. Really? A lot of people who I go to, when I go to consulting firms and I tell them this, they're thinking, what? We need to redo every single one of our slides. Yes, you do. Hopefully most of your slides don't have too many more than 6 words. But his point is, a slide does not have a duration. It's what you say that takes time. And if you're going to say 130 words, that's going to take 1 minute. Whether you have 1 slide or 10 slides, it makes no difference. And that's why I would say on Monday, whether you've got 5 slides or 20 slides, as long as you can do them in 4.5 minutes, that's fine. If your slide passes the 5-second rule, if people get it in 5 seconds, it's not a problem if you move forward after 10, because they've already got it. People don't mind that. Let me give you another example then. Another example slide, because we can't always use things which say, change the world. Let's try a figure slide. And I'm going to give you 5 seconds. Let's go. Okay, what did we get out of that one? Anyone? I know it's late. I'm sure you'll be able to get something. Anyone remember? Revenues grew. That's a good start. By how much? 30. Everyone got 30%. Between when and when? Between 2013 and 2014. And do we remember the figures before and after? 20 to 26 million. You got absolutely everything that was on that slide in 5 seconds. So it's perfectly possible to have some words, to have some figures, to have a graph, and for people to still get it in 5 seconds. You only got it, though, because we took away everything that's not necessary. Every element on there is big enough and simple enough to read. But there's nothing that's not necessary, like a logo or some text or confidential, please do not share without permission, or whatever. Or the slide number, 87 or 326. No, so none of that visual pollution is there, so it's easy for people to get. So just make sure that you're putting as little on the slides as you can. I love telling this story. It's a friend of mine called Gar Reynolds. He wrote a great book called Presentation Zen. He lives in Japan. Presentation Zen is a fantastic book, which I thoroughly recommend. And he was speaking to a group of executives at Procter & Gamble in Japan. And at the end of his talk, 1 hour about presenting, a bit like I'm doing with you now, he asked all of these Japanese people, oh, by the way, in this 1 hour, how many slides do you think I used? And the Japanese in the audience were, perhaps 40 or 50. And then he said, nope. It was 400. And the Japanese in the audience were, oh. Japanese are fantastic at expressing surprise. I love this. Oh, because they hadn't seen 400 slides go by. Of course they'd seen them, but they hadn't realized there were so many because it doesn't disturb them. Because we all watch television and films. And if you watch television, you'll find that the image is always changing. There are two possible situations when your television shows the same image for a few minutes at a time, or for at least more than 10 seconds at a time. One is if you're watching snooker. Le billard anglais. Yeah. The other time is when the television is switched off. Any other time, the image will change in less than 10 seconds. So that doesn't bother people as long as they've understood it. So don't worry about moving on. As long as your slide is simple, you can move on. It won't disturb people. The second point, simple. The second one is clear. Make sure your slides are clear. Now, you may be thinking simple and clear. That's kind of the same thing, right? Well, not quite. Here is a simple message. Is that clear for you guys at the back? Can you read that from the stairs, Jérôme? Not straightforward, right? Is that clearer? Of course it's clearer. It's just as simple, but it's much clearer. Clarity comes with size, but also with making your images visual. Because this is much easier and quicker to understand for your brain than this. Right? It's like the world is round. Oh, of course it is. I can see it. We process that more quickly. So make your slides as visual as you can and the message will be clearer. But the clearest message I want to give you here is that size really matters. Make it as big as possible. If you're not sure your text is big enough, it's not big enough. Make it bigger. Doesn't matter. If you only got 6 words per slide, you can make them big words. Clarity also comes not just from size, but also from contrast. At this point, you're probably wondering, why the hell have we got an image of a lady with her arms spread wide to talk about contrast? It's because this is a trick slide, ladies and gentlemen. Did you see the message in the bottom left here? Possibly you did. But usually when I'm presenting this, that particular thing here, can you read this, doesn't actually show up. Or it hardly shows up. And when I point it out, people say, oh yeah, there is actually something there, yes. But usually people don't get it. It depends on the projector. Always remember the contrast on the projector screen is much worse than on your laptop. So black on white, white on black, be careful with the contrast. If you're not sure you have enough contrast, you haven't. Good slides are simple and they are clear. But they're also original. These people on Monday are going to see 50 different pitches. It's going to be really important that you do something different, something out of the ordinary, something that makes people think, oh, haven't seen that before. So that at every click they're thinking, what am I going to see next? Rather than, oh, it's going to be another boring slide. So for me to be more original, because I've been using these slides all the time with the same font down here as a kind of a category or title, and the same orange band there, which goes nicely with my shirt and my company colors, well, maybe I could do something a bit more original with this. That's a different way of doing it, isn't it? Using the chess piece there, the pawn, as the eye, original. So simple, clear, original. The fourth thing then is to make things relevant. Your slide has to be relevant to what you are saying at the time. If your slide is like this jigsaw puzzle, let's say the missing piece in this jigsaw puzzle, it means it has to be linked with what you were saying before, what you were saying, what you're going to say afterwards, but particularly with what you're saying at the time. Never show a slide which is not relevant to what you're saying or which was relevant 2 minutes ago, but you don't need it anymore, or which isn't relevant yet and you're going to come to it soon. If you're talking about one thing and you're showing something else, they'll be thinking, why is he showing that while he's talking about something else? And they're not listening. So don't do that. Also make sure that you're not using pictures or whatever just for the sake of using pictures. If you're using things which don't fit with your message, it's not going to work. So for example, we aim to be first to... no, Francois, I don't think so. People love our new app. Yeah? No, apparently not. Or our strategy. Yeah, clear strategy. That's great. If that's true, that's a bit too honest, right? Or perhaps, well, ambitious. We'll double our revenue in 2004. What's she doing there? I don't think any of you are running perfume companies here, right? You can't use pictures just because they are pretty pictures. The old, you remember the typical stick man figures in PowerPoint? You know, the clip art? The people, the stick man figure going, because he's got like a light bulb above his head because he has an idea. Ding! Yeah, you remember those? They were cool in 1996. They're not cool anymore. But nowadays, that horrible Microsoft clip art has been replaced. I call it death by pretty PowerPoint. It's those typical figures that many companies have, the typical images of, for example, people crowding around a computer going, or the people who are shaking hands in front of a picture of the world. You seen those? Right? Shaking hands. Usually a black man or a black hand and a white hand shaking hands in front of a picture of the world to say, look, we're working together, we're collaborating. Yeah, we've seen those 1,000 times. We don't want to see them again. Give them something original, but make it relevant to what you're saying. The last thing, so simple, clear, original, relevant. The last thing, of course, is to make it enjoyable to look at. Something which actually is going to make them want to watch what you're doing and keep their eyes open and look at your slides. Nope, that's not the one I want. Okay, there we are. That's something a little bit better, a little piece of advice, 1 point at a time. But at least the design is different. It's much more attractive, much more pleasant to look at than the bad example we saw there, or the bad examples we saw a few minutes ago. So how do you get slides to be enjoyable and effective and get people remembering 65%? The main thing is big images or graphs and big words, just a few big words. Here's something which is the kind of thing which Orange would do, for example. Full screen images and big words work very, very well. You don't need full screen images all the time. But if you're going to use pictures, make them big. If you're going to use graphs, make them big, make them clear, and take out everything you don't need. Make them look attractive if you can. Recently, when we were working with one of the startups at Microsoft Ventures, which is called Les Grappes, we were helping them to produce slides which talked about the size of the online wine market in France between 2011 and 2017. Rather than just do a boring graph, they're in the wine market. So we had a glass of wine, which was small in 2011, and a much bigger one in 2017. And we had the glasses filling up gently, so it made a very nice visual effect. If you can have something which is linked to your universe, to the kind of market that you're in, people will remember it far better than a simple graph. Now, just a quick question. What color is this here? And I don't mean red. What color is this? Anybody? Sorry? It's a kind of a dark grey, okay? Usually people will say black, but indeed it's a kind of a dark grey. If I were to just switch this off completely and say, look, okay, that particular screen there, is it green? No. Is it red? No. Is it blue? No. Is it black? No. It's white. You're projecting onto a white screen. So the background here is effectively it's white. Now there's not much light around here, therefore it looks kind of grey. But you're not projecting onto black, you're projecting onto white. On my computer, the background there is black. But black on a projector means no light is projected. Or in this case, not much light is projected. Do you really need to assault your audience with much more light by having a bright white background around everything? Generally, at the point when I show this one versus this one, there are some people whose eyes go, ooh. If you want people to be bored, if you want people to be tired and tire their eyes, by all means give them lots of bright white light like that. But there are lots of reasons not to do so. One of the reasons when you're being filmed, and on Monday you might be filmed and it might be streamed, don't know yet, but assume it will be, then you will find that if you've got lots of bright white light on the screen, then on the film you will be looking very, very dull because of the contrast. It's very, very difficult for the cameraman and the cameras, unless they're very, very high quality equipment, to get the contrast right with the light on you and on the screen, unless the screen is not too bright. Another reason is if you're using an image like this, right, a portrait style image, and you have a white background, then you have these bars on the left and on the right of the image, which again makes you look dull, but also it's like, what's the point of having them there? Whereas instead, if you have a black background, that means that you have no light on the side of the images and people can see you as well, which is nice. Don't make their eyes adjust. The other reason for using a darker background is that most white slides really suck. Think about it. 99% of PowerPoint slides are really, really terrible. They do not manage any of the score rules that we mentioned a few moments ago. So most slides suck. It's like bullet points. Microsoft says you will click here to add title, click here to add bullets, and that's what we do. So most slides are terrible. And you know what? Most slides have a white background. If you want to be associated with something better than that, don't use a white background. But I'm going to give you a slide, and I'm going to give you the world's best slide free of charge. You can use this in your pitches, you can use it in any of your presentations, you can even use it more than once. Do you want to see this one? Here it goes. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that powerful? That means that I can walk in front of the projector without having CON tattooed on my forehead, right? It means that the audience's attention comes right back on me. There is no rule that says that during your presentation you have to have a slide on the screen at all times. It's perfectly possible to say, there's nothing I need on the screen, so I'm going to project nothing. And projecting nothing is a black slide, a pure black slide. And then the next time you click, people will, oh, there's something new, and then they'll be interested. So if you want, just use some pure black slides from time to time. It will make a difference, and that will help a lot. And if you can do that, if you can manage to make your slides, as we said, score here, right? If you can make them simple and clear and original, relevant to what you're saying at the time, and enjoyable, then you'll be making a good score. And the slides bring it all together in something visual that makes people remember more and enjoy more. The slides are not your slides, they're their slides. They're not to help you remember what you're supposed to say, they're there to help them remember what you have said. And if you can master all of those three, then you will be giving a kind of a 2.0 style pitch. Not the boring style, the typical death by PowerPoint, here I'm giving you all the information about my company style pitch, but something really, really interesting. And if, on Monday, if they see 49 1.0 boring pitches and one 2.0 pitch, the 2.0 pitch is the one they're going to remember. That's the one they might call back. That's the one they might contact afterwards and say, hey, I'm in town for 3 days, come and see me. That's the one they might invest in. Make sure it's yours.